Ever stumbled upon a song so catchy that it dominated radio stations, only to vanish before you could even memorize the artist's name? Plenty of tracks burn like supernovas, shining with intense brilliance for a short time, then disappearing from popular memory. It's a fascinating phenomenon. One moment, everyone's humming the chorus. The next, the artist is barely mentioned in the music scene. But sometimes, a closer look reveals hidden stories, controversial inspirations, hastily written lyrics that miraculously turned into smash hits, legal entanglements, or surprising pop culture tie-ins that propelled a simple tune into stardom. That's exactly what we're exploring today. A collection of one-hit wonders that soared high on the charts around the mid-1970s, left fans clamoring for more, and then either faded or never quite replicated that magic. But don't be fooled. Some of these forgotten singles left behind footprints much bigger than their brief chart presence suggests. They influenced entire subgenres, triggered lawsuits, got tangled in rumors, or even inspired future generations of musicians. Every track carries a backstory. Maybe it was meant to be a B-side nobody believed in, or perhaps it was recorded by a teenage prodigy who had no idea what kind of legacy he was creating. There are also songs whose success can be traced to a rising cultural craze, like martial arts films or horror movies that lend a piece of music an unforgettable shine. 1. Carl Douglas, Kung Fu Fighting. When talk turns to disco-funk crossovers that lit up dance floors, Kung Fu Fighting is often the first track that springs to mind. But few realize how accidental its success really was. Written and recorded by Carl Douglas, it was initially relegated to the B-side of another single. There was a sense that it might be too novelty to hold its own on the airwaves. The lyrics capitalized on the martial arts craze, which itself was fueled by the meteoric rise of Bruce Lee's Kung Fu films. Yet what might have seemed like a gimmick quickly proved addictive. The beat was contagious, the chorus instantly memorable. The track soared straight to the top of the charts in multiple countries, selling over 11 million copies and putting Douglas in the global spotlight. But success came with its share of controversy. As the Kung Fu film trend continued, some critics claimed the song played into cultural stereotypes, especially in how it condensed martial arts tropes into a single danceable hook. Others argued that it fed into Western fascination with exotic fighting styles without truly paying homage to their cultural origins. Carl Douglas himself, who had Jamaican heritage and worked extensively in British studios, rarely spoke out about these controversies, possibly preferring to let the success speak for itself. Unfortunately, none of his subsequent releases matched the unstoppable momentum of Kung Fu Fighting, relegating him to the dreaded one-hit wonder category. 2. George McCrae, Rock Your Baby. Another song that epitomizes the danceable groove of the era is Rock Your Baby by George McCrae. Released around the same time disco was blossoming, it boasted a dreamy falsetto set against a hypnotic rhythm. The track was penned by Harry Wayne Casey and Richard Finch, better known as the core of KC and the Sunshine Band. In fact, the pair originally worked on the composition as a quick demo, until McCrae arrived in the studio and delivered vocals so captivating they decided to finalize it right away. The entire process took only 45 minutes to record. This one soared to the top of the Billboard Hot 100, dominating dance floors and eventually racking up sales well into the millions. Even though George McCrae had a few minor follow-ups, none reached the same stratospheric heights. He found himself overshadowed by the rising popularity of KC and the Sunshine Band, who went on to have multiple hits of their own. Adding to the intrigue, Rock Your Baby is commonly cited as one of the earliest mainstream hits to use a drum machine, setting a precedent for the disco and electronic era that would peak in the late 70s and early 80s. These high-energy, funky tunes captured the spirit of the clubs and reflected a shifting musical landscape. But not all hits from this period were about dancing and celebration. Let's move on to a couple of ballads that shocked the industry by tugging at listeners' heartstrings and soared just as high on the charts. 3. Terry Jacks, Seasons in the Sun.
We had joy, we had fun, we had seasons in the sun, but the hills that we...
Despite its light, almost sweet melody, Seasons in the Sun has a surprisingly morbid backstory. It was originally adapted from a melancholy Belgian song by the legendary Jacques Brel, who penned lyrics about a dying man saying farewell to his loved ones. When Canadian musician Terry Jacks got hold of it, he softened the tone and made the emotions more direct. He'd been moved by a personal tragedy, the loss of a close friend, so he poured that pain into the studio recording. Listeners immediately responded, sending the single to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, and in several other countries as well. But the track also drew polarizing reviews. Some critics labeled it overly sentimental, even too sugary, while others acknowledged its universal appeal. Rumors swirled that Jacks had hesitated to record the song, feeling it might be in poor taste to turn heartbreak into a pop hit. Ultimately, the mainstream appeal outweighed any reservations. Despite smashing success, Terry Jacks struggled to replicate that high. Seasons in the Sun grew into such a cultural fixture, often used in commercials, film soundtracks, and nostalgic radio segments, that the rest of his discography was largely overshadowed. 4. Billy Swan, I Can Help.
Got a problem, I don't care what it is. You need a hand, I can assure you this.
The story behind I Can Help is almost whimsical. Billy Swan, an American singer-songwriter with ties to the country rock scene, was toying around with a miniature organ gifted by Chris Christopherson and Rita Coolidge. He stumbled upon a catchy chord progression that felt bright and instantly memorable. Jotting down simple, heartfelt lyrics about offering help to a loved one, he recorded the track in a casual studio session. One made even more memorable by Swan's dog persistently tugging at his pants leg, anxious to get attention. Released in 1974, I Can Help leaped onto both the pop and country charts, hitting #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and Hot Country Singles. Its upbeat melody felt tailor-made for radio, short, toe-tapping, and warm. While Billy Swan continued making music, I Can Help remained his only major pop success. To some fans, it's surprising that he didn't achieve more mainstream hits, given the universal positivity of that single. Others point out that the song's universal message made it timeless, ensuring it would remain in rotation on oldie stations for decades to come. Both Seasons in the Sun and I Can Help demonstrated that heartfelt storytelling could captivate audiences just as effectively as a disco groove. But sometimes, it wasn't heartfelt sincerity that captured attention. It was raw rebellion and edgy subject matter. Next, we're taking a leap into the territory of sneaky high school antics and downright eerie instrumentals. 5. Brownsville Station, Smoking in the Boys' Room. Imagine a song that practically dares teenagers to break the rules, while also warning them they'll get caught. Smoking in the Boys' Room by Brownsville Station became an instant anthem for rebellious high schoolers. The lyrics revolve around a group of students sneaking out of class to indulge in cigarettes, only to be discovered by the principal. Released in late 1973 and gaining traction into 1974, it soared to the upper reaches of the Billboard Hot 100, eventually peaking at #3. The track's success is partly thanks to its edgy theme, which resonated with young listeners tired of rigid school policies. Behind the scenes, there was hesitancy from the band's producer to even release it as a single. But fate intervened when a radio station in Portland, Maine started spinning the track, prompting a wave of requests. Before long, Smoking in the Boys' Room became Brownsville Station's signature tune and effectively overshadowed the rest of their catalog. In the mid-1980s, Motley Crue revitalized the track with a glam metal twist, introducing it to a new generation and cementing its rebellious legacy. Interestingly, the success led to debates over glamorizing smoking, especially among teenagers. But controversy aside, the track remains a staple of good-natured teenage mischief. 6. Mike Oldfield, theme from Tubular Bells. In stark contrast to teenage pranks, theme from Tubular Bells introduced a haunting, otherworldly quality that was unexpectedly catapulted to fame by a major Hollywood production. Mike Oldfield, a teenage multi-instrumentalist from the UK, composed the expansive album Tubular Bells almost single-handedly. The record itself was groundbreaking, a fusion of progressive rock, folk, and classical elements. But what truly cemented its place in popular culture was The Exorcist. The film's producers selected the opening piano line to underscore the movie's chilling atmosphere, and that snippet soon became inseparable from scenes of supernatural dread. In 1974, a standalone single of the Tubular Bells theme was released in the United States, climbing to number 7 on the Billboard Hot 100. This mainstream success took Oldfield by surprise, especially since his initial project wasn't designed to be a single-friendly product. Some viewers who saw The Exorcist were so spooked by the association that they couldn't hear those first few notes without getting goosebumps. Despite the track's success, Oldfield famously struggled with performing it live in the early years, partly due to stage fright and partly due to the complicated layering of instruments. Even so, the album and its theme have since been hailed as milestones in progressive music. Having journeyed through rebellious smoke breaks and bone-chilling soundscapes, it's time to lighten the atmosphere. Picture warm sand, sunny beaches, and a wave of nostalgic romance. Yet the next track's beachy vibe has a surprising twist. Its creators weren't exactly who you'd expect. 7. The First Class Beach Baby. Close your eyes while listening to Beach Baby, and you might imagine West Coast surfers, vintage boardwalks, and summer flings. In reality, this breezy anthem emerged from the minds of British session musicians. Written by John Carter and his wife Gillian "Jill" Shakespeare, Beach Baby was recorded with a group of UK studio pros fronted by vocalist Tony Burrows, who incidentally performed on numerous studio group hits of the era. Released in 1974, the track's lush harmonies and cheerful brass conjured images of 1950s California youth culture, even though its creators were firmly rooted across the Atlantic. The single reached the top 5 on the Billboard Hot 100 and captured hearts across North America. However, it also courted legal drama. The composition borrowed motifs from Sibelius's Fifth Symphony, prompting a lawsuit and speculation about copyright infringement. Despite, or perhaps because of those complications, Beach Baby solidified itself as a summer radio staple. Ironically, few follow-up songs by the First Class ever garnered the same acclaim, leaving them with the bittersweet distinction of being best known for a track that romanticized a setting they'd never truly experienced firsthand. 8. Rick Derringer, Rock and Roll, Hoochie Coo. Switching from sugary summer romance to unabashed rock energy, we land on Rock and Roll, Hoochie Coo. Written by Rick Derringer, it was initially recorded in 1970 by Johnny Winter, but Derringer's own version, featured on his 1973 solo album All American Boy, became the definitive take. Released as a single, it roared onto FM rock playlists and eventually crossed over to the top 40 on the Billboard Hot 100. The title alone suggests an anthem brimming with electric guitar riffs and bluesy swagger. Derringer, already a rock journeyman by that time, showcased his deft guitar skills and knack for punchy vocal melodies. In a decade that produced an avalanche of classic rock hits, rock and roll, Hoochie Coo carved out a distinct space, thanks in part to its fusion of blues, rock, and a faint dash of funk. Despite its success, Derringer didn't achieve the same heights again with later releases under his own name, though he remained active as a session musician and producer. Still, many a 1970s guitar playlist includes Rock and Roll, Hoochie Coo as a must-have staple. Transition. The adrenaline rush of scorching guitar solos might leave you breathless, but the next section proves music can also soothe souls and inspire reflection. Get ready for a dose of optimism, heartfelt messages, and the kind of soulful
You may not drive a great big cat
that call for a deeper appreciation of life's blessings. 9. William DeVaughn, Be Thankful for What You Got. Sometimes a feel-good track doesn't need flashy gimmicks or an elaborate backstory. It only needs a universal message delivered with genuine soul. Be Thankful for What You Got by William DeVaughn did exactly that. Initially titled A Cadillac Don't Come Easy, the song was first recorded in 1972, but it truly caught fire after a 1974 release and retitling. With production taking place at Philadelphia's Sigma Sound Studios, home to the iconic Philly sound. The single was blessed by the artistry of MFSB, Mother, Father, Sister, Brother, whose lush strings and smooth bass lines had powered countless hits. The lyrics emphasize gratitude, urging listeners to appreciate whatever they have, whether it's a flashy car or a simple diamond in the back. Some considered it a quieter cousin to Curtis Mayfield's socially conscious soul, while others saw it as a spiritual successor to Marvin Gaye's reflective tunes. The track soared up the R&B charts, peaking at number 1 and also cracking the Billboard Hot 100's top 5. Although Devon attempted additional singles later, none came close to replicating that out-of-nowhere triumph. Nonetheless, Be Thankful for What You Got remains a timeless reminder that material possessions pale in comparison to a grateful heart. 10. Johnny Bristol, Hang On in There Baby.
Hang in there, baby. Gonna make love tonight. Don't.
If there's one soul record that can lift your spirits and break your heart at the same time, it might be Hang On in There Baby by Johnny Bristol. Released in 1974 as the lead single from his album of the same name, it showcased Bristol's silky voice and polished songwriting chops. Interestingly, Bristol had carved out a significant career behind the scenes at Motown, co-writing hits for Marvin Gaye, The Supremes, and others. When he stepped into the spotlight, his emotive vocals were just as compelling as his production talents. The lyrics revolve around providing emotional support to a loved one. Hang on in there, baby. Give me love tonight. Don't be afraid, baby. And that simple phrase resonated. It climbed high on the pop and R&B charts, briefly making Johnny Bristol a household name beyond his recognized status as a behind-the-scenes hitmaker. While he never reached those commercial heights again, his influence as a Motown architect endured. Over the years, Hang On in There Baby has been covered, sampled, and referenced by artists across genres, demonstrating the track's lasting impact. From messages of gratitude and perseverance, we now pivot to tracks that either crammed in dozens of references at breakneck speed or took audiences by surprise with their unconventional approach. Prepare for a quick sprint through music history and a prayer that baffled critics. 11. Reunion, Life is a Rock, but the Radio Rolled Me. If you enjoy songs that name-check half the music industry in under 4 minutes, Life is a Rock, but the Radio Rolled Me is your ticket. This 1974 single was performed by a cobbled-together group of studio pros under the moniker Reunion, with lead vocals by Joey Levine, best known for earlier bubblegum pop hits like Yummy, Yummy, Yummy. The premise? A mile-a-minute homage to the sounds, artists, and cultural trends that shaped 1950s, 60s, and early 70s pop. The song references icons and titles at a dizzying pace, forcing listeners to replay the track just to catch every nod. It leapt into the Billboard Top 10, fueled partly by its novelty factor. Rumors circulated that live performances would occasionally trip up Levine, understandably so, given the breath control required. After its peak, the band called Reunion essentially dissolved, returning to behind-the-scenes studio work. Still, Life is a Rock, but the Radio Rolled Me became a go-to memory lane track for radio DJs wanting to celebrate the era's musical heritage. 12. Sister Janet Mead, The Lord's Prayer.
Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name.
Shifting from lightning-speed name drops to a devout expression of faith, we find Sister Janet Mead, an Australian nun who cracked the pop charts with a rock-inflected version of The Lord's Prayer. It was a development few saw coming, including Sister Janet herself. Produced by Martin Erdman, the record took the familiar words of the Christian prayer and set them against a contemporary pop-rock backdrop. Traditionalists were split. Some were outraged at what they viewed as a trivialization of sacred text, while others saw it as a bold new way to bring faith-based messages to mainstream audiences. The track climbed as high as number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100, eventually selling nearly 3 million copies and earning gold certification in the US, an extraordinary feat for a religious piece in the pop sphere. Sister Janet Mead thus became only the second Roman Catholic nun, after the singing nun in 1963, to claim a major mainstream hit in America. Although she never again reached those dizzying heights, her single remains an intriguing testament to how music can cross boundaries, even the boundary between religious devotion and commercial success. Transition. Having sprinted through rapid-fire pop references and seen an Australian nun break music taboos, it's time to slow things down. Let's examine 2 songs that revolve around longing, travel, and that painful human tendency to cling to illusions when reality feels too harsh. 13. Dave Loggins, Please Come to Boston.
Please come to Boston for the springtime.
One of the most heartfelt requests for companionship ever pressed onto vinyl, Please Come to Boston, delves into the life of a restless wanderer begging his sweetheart to relocate wherever he roams. Released in 1974, it was penned and performed by Dave Loggins, cousin to singer-songwriter Kenny Loggins, though the two built their careers independently. The track conjures images of a troubadour scraping by in one city after another, Boston, Denver, LA, always yearning for the woman he left behind. Each time, she tells him to come on home instead of chasing illusions. Listeners became enthralled by the sincerity of Loggins' vocals and the gentle acoustic guitar arrangement. The single peaked at number 5 on the Billboard Hot 100, also topping the easy listening charts. Rumor has it the emotional depth stemmed partly from Dave's own experiences touring, combined with elements of fiction to heighten the romance. While he continued to write songs for other artists, and even scored moderate success in country music, none of his solo works eclipsed Please Come to Boston. Nonetheless, it remains a staple of soft rock radio, often reintroduced to new audiences by covers from country singers. 14. Sammy Joe, Tell Me a Lie. For anyone who's ever wished for a pretty lie instead of painful honesty, Tell Me a Lie speaks volumes. Written by Mickey Buckins and Barbara Wyrick, the song found its most famous incarnation in Sammy Joe's 1974 recording. The premise is both simple and poignant. A woman suspects the truth about a fading relationship, yet pleads to hear comforting fibs rather than confronting heartbreak. Despite that heavy theme, the melody itself is gentle, leaning toward the softer side of pop with undertones of country. Listeners gravitated to the raw vulnerability, pushing the single into the Billboard Hot 100's top 40, while also finding traction on adult contemporary stations. Critics praised Sammy Joe's emotive vocals, though radio follow-ups never produced a comparable hit. Interestingly, Tell Me a Lie enjoyed a second wind nearly a decade later when country singer Janie Frick turned it into a chart-topping country single. This dual success in both pop and country underscores how universal the theme is. Sometimes, a well-crafted illusion feels easier to bear than the truth. 15. The Night Chicago Died, by Paper Lynn.
Heat of a summer night in the land of the dollar.
Is a spirited piece of pop-rock storytelling that soared to the top of the Billboard Hot 100 in 1974, despite its fictional take on Al Capone-era Chicago. Hailing from Nottingham, England, the band conjured images of a dramatic gangster showdown involving 100 cops facing ruthless criminals, an atmospheric leap that captured listeners' imaginations more than historical accuracy. With its bouncy melody and cinematic lyrics, the song felt like a Hollywood movie jammed into 3 minutes of radio-friendly catchiness. Though Paper Lace never replicated this success in the US, The Night Chicago Died remains a memorable monument to the whimsical blend of myth and melody that defined so many of the 1970s most beloved one-hit wonders. We've just journeyed through a tapestry of music that zigzags from disco-funk grooves to raw ballads of yearning, from rebellious anthems to spiritual rock prayers. Despite their differences in style and tone, these tracks share one defining trait. Each caught lightning in a bottle at least once, capturing widespread attention and generating fervent excitement, only to recede into the background before the artists could replicate that astounding level of commercial success. Yet one-hit wonder can be a misleading label because it rarely tells the whole story. Each of these songs has influenced budding musicians, taken root in the collective memory, or opened up creative possibilities for future hits. Some triggered controversies around cultural stereotypes or religious boundaries. Others introduced new production techniques, like early drum machines, while still others left behind a swirl of rumors that keep fans intrigued decades later. So now we hand it over to you. Did any of these songs make you instantly hum their unforgettable chorus? Are there other overlooked hits from that same era you think deserve renewed attention? Let your voice be heard in the comments, and don't forget to check out more videos that delve into the forgotten corners of music's past. Every so often, you'll find a track that resonates more powerfully today than it ever did when it first debuted. Subscribe to Rock Inferneur if you want to keep journeying with us through the lesser-known stories behind your favorite tunes. And remember, sometimes a short-lived chart triumph can leave a surprisingly long-lasting impression.
In the land of the dollar bill.